Hello everyone. In the last video we learned about if statements and if-else statements. In this video I want to show you an example that uses if and if-else statements in order to solve a real-world problem. The real-world problem is going to be kind of small, but it's a great example. We're going to implement a game called Guess My Number. How the game works is we'll have the user guess a number. They're trying to guess a secret number that they don't know. We'll tell the user if they guess the number correctly, if their guess is too high, or if their guess is too low. We'll use this example problem in this video, but it won't be a complete game. We'll add on to this example problem over the course of the semester as we learn more and more topics related to C++. For example, right now, if the user guesses incorrectly, they're not going to get another chance to guess that number. They'd have to rerun the program because the program doesn't have any looping constructs. There's no way to repeat code, but we'll learn about how to do that soon. Also, the number is going to be fixed. In future iterations of this program, we'll be able to assign random numbers such that each time the user plays our game, they'll be guessing a different random number. So lots to improve upon our initial version of the game we're going to code up today. So go ahead and, as part of the warm-up task, code up an empty main function in a file called guessmynumberfun.cpp. We're going to need two variables in this program. The first variable we're going to need is a secret number. This is the number that the user is trying to guess. So let's fix our secret number to always be in the range 1 through 10 inclusive. That way we can prompt the user and say, hey, enter a secret number in the range 1 through 10. If we didn't say that, then it could be any number, and that would be a pretty challenging game. So we'll stick with integers in 1 to 10. So let's have our secret num be an integer, and go ahead and pick any number in the range 1 through 10. I'm going to choose 4. Make a little comment here. This is the number the user is trying to guess. Then we've got another integer which represents the user's guess. We'll just initialize it to 0. It's soon going to be overwritten by a number that we get from the user. Okay, now we've got our variables declared and initialized. We are ready to prompt the user for their guess. So let's give them a little welcome message. We'll tell them to enter a number in the range. Actually, I'll be more specific. I'll say an integer. Guess an integer in the range 1 to 10. And then we'll go ahead and read in that integer into user guess. So now would be a good time to save, compile, and test, right? We're trying to do that really frequently so that if there's a bug that we've introduced in our code, we can detect it early because we've only written a small amount of code since the last time we tested. So let's just add a cout statement and say, you entered, and we'll just echo back out user guess to make sure that we can successfully read in their number. When you're ready, go ahead and save, compile, and test. So I'm currently testing my code. It says, welcome to the Great Guess My Number game. Guess an integer in 1 through 10. Okay, so I'll enter in 7. And it says you entered 7. Awesome. So far, so good. I'm going to head back over to the code and comment out that cout statement. I'm going to leave it in there in case I need it for debug purposes later, but for now, I don't need it anymore. We've confirmed that we're able to read in a number from the user. Now, a task. This is for you to try. Using an if statement, tell the user if they guessed the number correctly or not. And the or not there is going to require you to use the second part of what we learned in our last video after we learned about the if statement. So go ahead and try this out. You have all the skills necessary in order to do this. So we'll use an if statement, and the Boolean condition that we need is if user guess is equivalent to the secret num, which means they've guessed it correctly. We'll tell them so. Now's a good time to save, compile, and test. We know the secret number is 4. We enter in 4. Our program says you guessed it. Awesome. We enter in something other than 4 and it doesn't tell us anything. So go ahead and try the or not part. They haven't guessed correctly. We can use an else statement that will execute when not user guess equal secret num, which is essentially user guess is not equal to secret num, which reading that aloud makes it sound exactly like when we want our else to execute, when user guess is not equal to secret num. And we'll tell them you are wrong. So let's save, compile, and test. And it says, you're wrong, nice try. Awesome. So now the next task. Give the user a hint. Are they too high or are they too low? We haven't quite done something this complicated yet. Most of our programs, or program that we've written so far, has just been if-else. But we can do this. We can give the user a hint if they're too high or too low by adding another conditional or two. So go ahead and think about how you might solve this and then code it up. There are 2 places that we could put this code. I'm going to put it right here on line 24, but in a future video, we're going to learn about putting if statements inside the bodies of other if or else statements. So you could put this code in here as well. But let's do it here for now. So let's test. If user guess is strictly less than secret num, that means they're wrong and they're too low. I don't want to use an else here because the complement of user guess less than secret num is user guess greater than or equal to secret num. And in the case that the user guessed correctly, we don't want to tell them they're too high. So I'm not going to use an else, I'm just going to use another if. If they are strictly greater than secret num, then I'm going to tell them you are too high. Awesome. Since there's no equal signs here, we're not testing ever for equality, strictly greater than or less than, then even though we're outside of this else statement, these CF statements will never show if they guessed it correctly. Let's prove it. Okay, so I'm going to guess correctly first. Okay, it says you guessed it, nice work. No hints are shown. That's correct. And then I'll go too high. I'll do 8. It says you're wrong. And then it says you are too high. And then I'll run it again, and I'll go too low. And it says you're wrong and you are too low. Great work. What we have now is a very rudimentary implementation of a guess by number game. When the user's wrong, we should let them guess again. In fact, we should let them keep guessing until they guess correctly. Also, right now, our number is always 4, which means the replayability of our program is 0, right? After running our program, finding out they're too low, running our program again, maybe finding out they're too high, and continuing to do this until they guess the number correctly, they're never going to want to play our game again because the number is always 4. So in the future, we will come back and add these improvements so that they can keep guessing until they guess correctly, and the number is different every time they run the program. Until then, keep practicing your if-else statements, and we will learn about nesting if-else statements and multiple alternative if statements.